So much of the news, like and everything, and particularly about that budget debate, oh, trouble, trouble, what happened? That doesn't seem good. Oh, no, okay, yes, you know, because you know what I was gonna say. Okay, I mean, what? I mean, is anything on? I should say. No, the
I have to tell
rescue
you, I've
of
never heard of
the.
such a thing, but I thought it was pretty clever of him.
That's the rescue of the people who were lost in the.
From both sides of the aisle, Democratic and Republican, have been saying, not sure if that's true because these events are generally very. Though it did dump snow and slush.
But I don't want to do the wrong things about the poor people and stuff. But when you have bad these, I don't want to just lose. You really do know what people are thinking, I guess. Okay. I mean, is it? Maybe you know something I don't. Wait. Are you so synced up? What to do? I mean, it may be so. It may be something that it's one thing that would be It's not something that people seem aware of because it would. I mean, in terms of these discussions about things like people they did it. I mean, they can't get unemployment insurance extended. The food stamp cuts are going through. Like there's still opposition, but like this is what see, but there's something we suspect over here about them. One about the sort of psychology of the part of the or the perception, I should say, of the part of the population who, I guess like votes Republican or whatever. Who I mean, the way in which they're perceiving like this issue of like things like steady unemployment, but also would have it may it I certainly I would assume. I mean, they do the way in which a Congress like in the part that like the why couldn't they get unemployment extended in that deal they made? Yeah, here's the thing: is like remember all the things we talked about that have created these conditions for the poor and working class and everything. That we always talk about this that our political class and many of the voters. And unfortunately, if many of these voters from a different generation like sort of pass along their perception of political things to their young people, okay, and then we talked about these like sort of conservative, like they're considered they're like they're research foundations, in a previous era this issue of which is just it has no real I mean there's no reason for it to be this way, but this ongoing sort of like wanting to scale back social programs, talking about like culture of dependency, these economists who come out from conservative think tanks and give justifications based on their master's degrees in economics, that there's nothing wrong with stopping the unemployment insurance extension, that there's nothing wrong with taking away people's food stamps, like things that you could just be silent on. Like, why do you want to harm the most desperate? But also like opposition to the raising of the minimum wage. People who are in that baby boom generation who aren't, remember, people aren't like they're reading magazines and stuff, but they're not like deep into politics or following economic things. They're doing other things, doctors and lawyers and all kinds of people that vote Republican. These conservative foundations are filled with people of the same generation, like coming out with their studies that they could just not even bother with that, but the studies justify these cuts to things that help poor people. That whole mentality, that thing when they use phrases like a culture of dependency and we're enabling people to get federal assistance and it's this isn't all the objection to that is it really does come from a political class and a certain voter who votes Republican who's sort of used to having that position, but they're from a previous era. The changes that have happened but it's part of that baby boom like debate between the Republicans and the Democrats of a different era. Okay, this would include this like free market, like the mythology part of them have, but the political classes of that generation too, and they reflexively are doing things that harm the poor, continue to harm people with low wages that never go up, continue to want to harm people who paid poverty wages. It's literally true that it might even be a majority of these people who are on this like Republican side that they actually don't realize that there's been a shift for all the structural reasons we talked about, where this is like for the majority of the society living in the Depression. In other words, all these people who you say, how could they do it? Take away 84 million people's food stamps, not extend unemployment insurance when there's no work, not want to raise the minimum wage when the cost of living and the value of the money has created a situation where those are like starvation wages. A lot of people living on minimum wage also need government assistance and eat at soup kitchens, okay? This reflexive argument by the sort of Republican part of our society and Republican congressmen, it's from another era when this like culture war argument involved things like scaling back the the welfare state, and involved things like saying people don't take personal responsibility like when they have government assistance. What we discussed in the other one is that with wages as low as they are and the kind of jobs that are available, and that's just it, people aren't necessarily going to even do better if they go off government assistance. It's very possible that that they can live better on government assistance than they can getting these jobs with petty wages. I mean, it's not a dependency to saying a person isn't going to do much better going off government assistance and getting one of these jobs, particularly because the job can be lost at any time because of the conditions of the economy structurally. I mean, these arguments about taking away the very fact that there's a political position that involves being okay with 84 million people's food stamps being taken away, not extending unemployment insurance, wanting to cut back government programs for the poor, not wanting to raise the minimum wage. These are all reflexive arguments that the Republican people who lean to the Republican side or who are part of like economists who are conservative, claim conservative in nature. These are reflexive arguments they were making in another era. Okay? Because right now, the idea of opposing assistance, when for the majority of the society it is like what they used to call the dirty 30s, there's no work, people are desperate, the homeless population keeps increasing. These arguments that you can't imagine, what, they have no conscience, political class and people who vote Republican wanting to take away the little bit of, wanting to harm the poor in that way. They actually may not realize how poor people are, how many more people are desperate, how many people who aren't the kind of people that ever thought they'd be living on government assistance. All of these arguments are coming from an older generation of Republican and conservative who doesn't live in reality about what's taking place in our economy in a real way. That's one of the things that's going to have to stop. But if they pass it along to the younger generation, and we see it when the college Republicans appear in these audience participation things, spouting the talk of the previous generations of Republicans who sort of think it's like a class war thing or it has to do with cultural issues, things. This is a major problem that we had, that of the older generation that is much older than your friend here. That's a lot of what's happening, where they don't live in reality about what about the vast radical difference that's taking place in our society, where we have now like a social structure that's like South America, and without structural change it's going to continue to be this way and get worse for most people. I just wanted to say that about what kind of stuff we're hearing on the news as far as what the Republican sector of our society is doing and advocating. That's just what I wanted to say.